Greetings and salutations, loyal viewers of this channel. My name is Sean, and today we got to talk about the Minneapolis PD police chief going off on the Hennepin County district attorney for repeatedly releasing criminals time and time again, and then when that results in an absolutely horrific shooting involving young kids, she decided to shift the blame to the police. But guess what? He has the documentation, he has the paperwork, he has the receipts, as the children's like to say. But most importantly, he has absolutely no patience for this horrible prosecutor in Hennepin County, and he's decided to air his grievances to the media and shut down the nonsense in the hope of saving the very same kids that this woke district attorney is pretending to advocate for with her woke policies. But as he's going to demonstrate throughout this press conference, it is she that is putting the young black children of Minneapolis in danger due to the fact that she refuses to prosecute them for anything. Now, we're going to get into this, but before we do, I want to thank everybody who supports this channel via actualjusticewarrior.com/join.
Give me the money. Give me the money, okay?
Good evening. As you know, this weekend, several children were in a stolen vehicle, and 4 of the 5 kids in that vehicle were shot. I'm thankful none of them were killed this weekend, but I'm also frustrated because this shooting was preventable. The county attorney's office could have taken at least 2 of these kids off the street 10 days ago, prior to this happening. But for whatever reason, they didn't.
So there are 2 things that I want to take note of for you guys out there in the audience. First and foremost, this guy, you might be saying, is huge. That is exactly 100% true, but also he might look, despite the little bit of gray in his facial hair, young to be a police chief for a major city. And the fact is, that is likely also true because guess what? We're talking about Minneapolis, and after the way that that police department was maligned post the George Floyd incident, post the Black Lives Matter riots, you would have to be somebody who's young and inexperienced to even want to risk it and take this job. So I commend this guy for actually stepping up into an absolutely horrific and impossible situation to be a police officer and try to lead the police force through that time. So already, just the fact that this guy exists and he's ready to fight for the actual citizens that don't commit crimes, I give him a ton of credit. But then I saw this press conference and my respect factor went up about tenfold.
Our juvenile investigators referred 2 cases to the county attorney's office involving 2 of the individuals for felony charges on August 9th. The kids weren't charged, they weren't diverted, and despite pleas from their parents begging for help, begging for them to be detained, they were let back out into the street, into the same environment, to commit more crimes, which they did over the weekend. We've had several of the parents involved with these kids in this shooting this weekend asking us to arrest their kids, begging us to detain them because they can't control them, and they're afraid they're going to get killed. As recently as Friday, this past Friday, we communicated that to the county attorney's office involving 2 of these individuals. But the county attorney's office isn't listening. The idea of catch and release with violent juveniles is not working. It's not fair to the kids involved or to the victims of serious crime.
So if you guys are unaware of the background of this, the woke district attorney for Hennepin County shifted all the blame to the police, said that they're not referring any of these juvenile cases to us, and honestly, it's all on them. Blame the cops. They're evil, white, and racist. Remember George Floyd. Let's blame the cops. So what he's answering is those false allegations, or as the super mayor likes to say, allegations.
False allegations and not facts.
Directly in public with the proof of that. He referred 2 of these kids that were in the stolen car where they got shot in, by the way, by other kids in another stolen car for a prosecution. The district attorney did nothing.
The troubling trend took a tragic turn when 4 kids were shot this weekend.
Now, by the way, we actually talked about some of the problems, not only in Minneapolis, but in Hennepin County as a whole. And this is something that all the different police agencies from all the different cities say that they have an issue with in Hennepin County.
If we as adults are not giving them any consequences, we're part of the problem too, but actually the system as a whole.
Sheriff Witt says there's confusion when children are arrested on where to take them. the lack of facilities. We don't have anywhere to take them.
And there are a lot of them. In Hennepin County so far this year, there have been 475 cases of vehicle theft, more than half, 247 committed by juveniles. And look at the numbers last year, 566 juvenile car theft cases, the most ever recorded in the county.
So what's going on right here? Is this guy lying? Are all the police lying? Is his paperwork lying? Is the fact that he did make these arrests on August 9th and refer them for charges to the district attorney also a lie? Or is the woke district attorney an absolute liar and an absolute scumbag who takes no accountability for her actions? And again, I will remind you that if they were arrested, if they were held accountable for car theft, then maybe days later they wouldn't be in another stolen car and got shot up by these other criminals who likely also have arrest histories for car theft that they weren't held accountable for.
As recently as Friday, this past Friday, we communicated that to the county attorney's office involving two of these individuals. But the county attorney's office isn't listening. The idea of catch and release with violent juveniles is not working. It's not fair to the kids involved or to the victims of serious crime. The time they spent detained would enable the system to identify resources to provide them to these kids instead of immediately releasing them right after they're arrested to go back into the same environment that produced this same result. We are referring youth offenders daily to community-based outreach resources. Additionally, we're referring kids to the county attorney's office diversion programs and other programs in the county. In fact, two of the kids involved in this incident are in the county attorney's office YGVI program. So for her to say anything else is simply not true. County attorney's office is playing a dangerous game with these kids' lives, and luckily no one this weekend paid the ultimate price. But I'm afraid next time we might not be so lucky.
Again, I appreciate the direct way that this guy is speaking about this. He calls it catch and release, which is exactly what's happening, but he also highlights all the different steps that they took in order to act that the Hennepin County prosecutor absolutely ignored. Again, the Friday before the shooting, they're contacted by a bunch of parents to do something about their kids. Please arrest them. Please hold them. Please charge them. Please just get them off the streets. We're worried they're running with the wrong crowd and they might get killed. So they, again, on top of that, and he has proof of this, warned the Hennepin County prosecutor, asked specifically about the two kids that they had cases on in this particular case, and they get ignored. And then, to make matters worse, after the shooting occurs, and after people point out that these people were arrested for car theft just days before, like a week before, and they ask what's going on, the Hennepin County prosecutor's office blames the cops. He says it was them. But let's be clear about this. It was definitely her office, her ideology, because this press conference published on August 19th. What was this woman tweeting about in and around that time? I swear, I just Googled to find out about her, and the first thing that came up were her tweets from August 18th, and get a load of this nonsense. Again, August 18th of 2024 at 10:05 a.m. Did you know that every year the Minnesota Sentencing Guidelines Commission completes a report with data on felony sentences throughout the state? The report breaks down the data by districts as well. Here's some of the data points on Minnesota sentences in the executive summary from 2022. The number of felony cases grew from 5,500 in 1981 to 16,259. Minnesota's population increased, but guess what? That does not account for the increase in felony sentences. In 1981, 82% of people sentenced were white. In 2022, 56% of the people sentenced were white, although the black and AA population made up 7.1% of Minnesota's population. It made up 26.5% of people sentenced. The native population was 1.5%, but 9.3% of the people sentenced on felony. In 2022, 97% of felony convictions were attained without a trial. In other words, people pled guilty to the felonies rather than having their trial. That's what this lady was tweeting about a day before this press conference. And to be clear, This woman is not supposed to be a defense attorney. She is not supposed to be some woke activist over at the ACLU or in any of these many various organizations that are quite useless when it comes to addressing facts, crime, and reality. She's the prosecutor. She's the district attorney, and she's complaining about plea bargains. You know, maybe this is why she's not trying any of these kids, because God forbid they plead guilty to the crimes that they actually committed, because that would upset her. Now, I will also point out that the numbers that she put out are not disproportionate at all from what you would expect. So she trots these numbers out. She's like, listen, they're only 7.1% of the population, but they represent 26% of the sentences. 26%, does that sound reasonable? And the answer to that question is yes, 100%. Definitely sounds reasonable. In fact, it may track a little too closely with the national data because the black population is between 12 and 14% of the American population, yet in terms of homicides, they commit well over half of the homicides. Sometimes it gets as high as 60% depending on the year, sometimes it gets as low as 48%, but that's right around what you would expect for about half of the half that commits the most crime nationally at similar rates. So this woman, this absolute idiot, is saying, oh, it's disproportionate to population, when we're talking about disproportionate behavior. They are committing those crimes. They are acting upon the world, and our court system, which is meant to respond to those who are acting in this way, is responding in a proportional and justified way against them.
The Hennepin County Attorney's Office had said no one related to this case, or that obviously auto theft were referred to the early intervention program. Is that true? And why?
Well, it is not true to say no one from this case. That's not true at all. 2 of the kids in this stolen car were referred to charges on August 9th for auto theft.
So just remember, when we're talking about the police chief trying to help the parents that are begging for help, the district attorney has that mindset. The district attorney's like, you know what? I need to fix the sentencing. I want it proportional to population, even though the crime isn't proportional. And the result of that is leaving more of these kids out on the street to get shot up, to fight the ghost of a ghost of racism past.
Nothing was done. They didn't put them in their diversion program. They didn't charge. Nothing. We followed up again as recently as Friday, saying parents were begging for help, and there's no decision that had been made. So it's just not true. We make referrals every day. Dozens of individuals who were not charged were referred for the auto theft diversion program, for the YGVI program at the county, as well as other diversion programs that the city has. And the PIOs can get you the exact numbers. But it's absolutely not true to say no one in this program was referred, no one involved in this incident was referred at all to their office.
Yeah, but Police Chief O'Hara, have you considered the fact that you're not advocating for white kids who are not stealing cars to be detained in a similar way? And that really bothers the district attorney. Like, I know you think it makes a difference that these black kids are stealing cars, they are shooting each other up, they are committing crimes, and thus their parents want them to be detained, but you're never ever outraged about these white kids who are not doing anything similar at any similar rate at all whatsoever, and shouldn't even be involved in this conversation. Have you ever considered that maybe, just maybe, you're an evil white racist and you're just filled with evil white racism? I mean, listening to black parents saying, hey, my child is in danger, please do something, I don't want them to die, that's basically like burning a cross on their front lawn. What's wrong with you? You gotta listen to Mary Moriarty, who's talking about disproportionate outcomes without accounting for disproportionate behavior.
And I realize some of the kids in this latest shooting may still be in the hospital, but does MPD have plans to refer all 5 based on this case to the early intervention program? Do you have plans to?
Right now, we are investigating the other kids that shot them. That's the priority right now, as well as the recovery of these kids here. And as I mentioned, there's still 2 cases we submitted for 2 of the individuals involved. We're still waiting for an answer.
Again, this is a big guy, intimidating guy. He's not yelling, he's not screaming, he's delivering the facts in a calm and concise manner, while again, the district attorney is busy tweeting out about statistics, bitching and moaning about a criminal justice system that should be targeting the criminals because she doesn't like the outcome because it makes her uncomfortable. And should we be surprised? Look at this woman. Look at Mary Moriarty and tell me she isn't somebody who's read White Fragility cover to cover and thought it would only be a better book if it was written by a minority. But then again, it's hard to ask a minority to educate you on stuff that you should know because they're not encyclopedias, although I could never really understand and never really get that information from somebody who's a white because I'm just a white. You know, this is something that I really need to think about. And while she's pondering those deep questions about her white fragility, she's releasing thugs and criminals onto the streets over and over again over the objection of their own parents just because she's trying to fight against the systemic structures and prosecute systemic racism and arrest poverty rather than deal with the criminals that she's supposed to deal with and go through the files that are actually on her desk submitted by the hardworking people in law enforcement. And again, this should be surprising to no one. Mary Moriarty, former public defender, which by the way, very unsurprising, a lot of these horrible district attorneys come from the public defender's office, was actually kicked out of the public defender's office by a 4-2 vote because back in 2014, she was too woke and annoying for the public defender's office. I don't think you guys understand how insane that is. Almost all of these woke district attorneys, the worst of the worst ones, are public defenders. That is the ideology that is held in that office, so much so that it produces terrible district attorney after terrible district attorney. This woman was so horrible to be around, so insufferable, she got kicked out of that office in 2014. So of course, Hennepin County, in their infinite wisdom, elected her the prosecutor. She's too annoying for the other woke idiots in the public defender's office, so they made her the damn prosecutor.
Is there anything you can say about their condition at this point?
Thank God, not life-threatening. Thank God, everyone is stable. To wake up in the middle of the night to hear 4 kids, all under 14 are shot, that should be the focus here. That's what everyone should be worried about. And especially when, a girl is shot in the head and we're initially thinking she might not make it. It's terrible. And everyone should be involved in, instead of pointing fingers, trying to figure out what are we actually going to do to try and do something about this.
Was it frustrating for you this afternoon to read that statement?
It was just, I don't know what to say about it because I'm living in the reality that I mentioned of what we actually are doing.
Now, I also want to point out that Mary Moriarty loves to play games, and I appreciate the fact that the police chief called her out on that, and that is to point at the clearance rate and say, well, they're not actually doing their job when it comes to these car thefts, because he answers this question beautifully.
And the one last thing I wanted to comment on was the clearance rate. I didn't know if you could kind of explain the 1.4% clearance rate that is in BCA data.
Yeah, I have no idea what they're talking about. The best I could surmise from that is that we're talking about the initial theft of the vehicle, and are we closing out the initial theft of the vehicle? When we're arresting kids in stolen cars, we're arresting kids that are driving stolen cars that were reported stolen in Minneapolis as well as different places around the metro, and they're being charged with either joyriding in the car or having possession of it. It's not tied back to the actual theft of the vehicle, and it makes no difference, as far as the seriousness of the crime. So I think that's just a diversion from the reality that the community here is experiencing.
Gotcha. So you're saying the clearance rate in that data would have to be related to whether you are able to submit a charge of auto theft.
Of actually stealing the car. Yep.
So yeah, when there is a car theft and it is a joyride, they end up charging him with driving a stolen vehicle, possession of a stolen vehicle, joyriding, and a bunch of other things that, by the way, should be equivalent to the actual sentence that you would get for Grand Theft Auto. However, if they can't prove Grand Theft Auto, they don't get charged with that. And by the way, guess who's not charging them with Grand Theft Auto? The Hennepin County District Attorney's Office. So then she only counts it as a clearance of a car theft, not if they recover the car, not if they arrest people that are in the car when they actually recover it, but if they're charged with Grand Theft Auto. So the Hennepin County District Attorney is rigging the numbers against the cops, getting called out for dropping the cases that, again, led to two of these individuals being in the car where they were shot, where they were nearly killed. And then she's like, oh, well, that's your fault. You didn't refer the cases, but they did. And you're not even clearing the car thefts, even though by every logical metric, they actually are clearing a fair amount of those car thefts. This is what these woke anti-cop activists do. They cook the books in their favor, throw out these numbers, and hope that other woke idiots on the internet.com end up repeating that.
And just in that one activation, they picked up 26 rounds. Just from what we were able to find, the scene went over at least 2 blocks that they were shooting. I believe our officers recovered at least 30 shell casings, which doesn't mean it's likely even more rounds that were fired. If you're firing from a vehicle, certainly casings can land inside the vehicle. It's just crazy.
Now, again, this should be asked to every one of these progressive idiots who defends these woke, sometimes George Soros-funded district attorneys, not exactly sure about Mary Moriarty, in their refusal to actually engage with criminals and actually prosecute cases. Is it better to have these kids out there joyriding in a car and taking bullets to the head? Is it better that dozens, if not maybe even 100 shots were fired during this drive-by from one stolen car filled with teenagers to another stolen car and could have hit anybody in the 2 blocks where these occurred? Is this the preferable outcome? Is this what you want? Because if this is what you're getting, this is what your ideology is pushing. And right now, unfortunately, despite the fact that this police chief is 100% right on the factual grounds, right on the policies that will actually help and all that, and the district attorney is 100% wrong, using cherry-picked out of context statistics, deflecting from the issue. She is the one with all the power, and the police chief has no credibility because he's the head of the Minneapolis police. Is this the legacy that all you George Floyd supporters actually want enforced upon this city in perpetuity? Is this worth it? Does this matter to you? How many kids need to be shot? How many kids need to be seriously injured? How many kids need to be killed before you've avenged George Floyd's death? Serious questions for the left that need to be answered, because this is the result. The rioting that you're perfectly fine with before, them abandoning the police station, letting all these businesses get destroyed. By the way, never going to recover from that economically. LA riots, 30 years old, still haven't recovered those neighborhoods, just so you know. Detroit riots in the 60s haven't recovered from that either. But was that worth it? And is this just how it's going to be? This is the price everyone had to pay because George Floyd died and the video made you angry? Absurd, insane in every possible way. But of course, this is where we're at in the city of Minneapolis. We have a police chief 100% right, howling against the wind, and nothing is going to get done. Nothing is going to change because woke idiots like Mary Moriarty are more concerned about disparate outcomes when there's disparate inputs. But you know what? Those are just my thoughts. I want to know what you guys think down in the comments below. If you like this video, show them by leaving a like. Subscribe for more content. Follow me on my social media. Support me via the support links in the description of this video. This has been me talking about the absolute madness in Minneapolis. Till next time.